Mm-hmm.
Rizzo. Got it.
Emelina, right? Emelina?
Yes.
Okay, I gotcha.
And then also the Bellevue, is that correct?
It's the Bellevue.
The Bellevue. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
got it.
All Frenchy.
You speak French?
I do speak a little bit of French, enough to get by when I'm in the airport.
Nice. What places have you traveled to?
I've been to Romania and China, but then I was born in Germany, and then my parents are Romanian, so I can't say that I really have any roots anywhere, and that's why I travel.
Nice.
But I'm so glad we finally got to like see each other, so yeah.
Me too, me too. How long have you been part of Cody's Digital Nomad Academy?
You know, I followed Cody for like I don't know how many years, and then he had that like Christmas sale, and I was
Uh-huh.
like, it is time. So in I think was it in December? Yeah, in December I joined. But I love the group, and I should have joined much sooner.
What kind of things have you been getting out of it so far?
Well, definitely mastermind calls every
Uh-huh.
Friday with a couple of the people. And then the articles are just fantastic, and just people that are in so many different places entrepreneurship wise that I'm like, oh, this is great. Because I'm in a lot of beginner entrepreneur groups.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm like, okay, this is cool, this is awesome. But I'm like, oh, you've been traveling and doing it for a while. I can pick your brain.
Yeah, I love it. And I love just the energy and just the resource of all the people. I think that's one of the best things for me.
Yep. How about you? When did you get involved in Digital Nomad Academy and everything?
Um, it was, I think I started following Cody on Twitter around either the end of 2010 or the beginning of 2011. I had this kind of in-person internet marketing mentor, and he looked up to Cody, and so he's like, "Oh, you should check out Cody." Um, and so I did, and I was like, "Oh, I really like this guy." So I just like followed him on Twitter, and then at some point I learned about the Digital Nomad Academy, and just because I was like an avid Twitter follower and like read all his blog posts, he gave me access to it for free. And so
Wow,
I've just kind
nice.
of, I think I was one of the first people when he first created it.
Hmm.
And yeah, so it's been a lot of fun. I got to meet him once. He came down to San Francisco a couple of years ago and had
Nice.
like a little meetup going on. And yeah, I find it a lot of great resources and like very inspiring. And then also just really great with the connections.
Yes. And I feel like once I talk to one person, then everybody knows each other. Like, oh, you know this person, how do you know this?
Uh-huh.
But I'm always like, every time I connect with somebody, I'm learning from them a ton, and it's just great conversation.
I just heard my Facebook ping. I'm going to close that off right now.
Oh, yeah, let me turn mine off too. Boop. Okay.
And then during the interview, if you see me looking down at all, that's me checking Twitter to see
Twitter, yeah.
I'm like, blah, blah, blah. I will be that on.
That's totally fine. That's totally fine. So Vidpal is Vidpal your startup?
No, it's not my startup. I joined the end of February, so like a month and a half, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, the founder is in New York, and he actually has a house in Spain, so he's back and forth between New York and Spain. And
Awesome.
then there's a co-founder who's also in New York, but he has family where I am in Petaluma near San Francisco. So I met up with him recently, like maybe a couple of weeks ago when he came down for vacation.
Nice.
Yeah, small world.
It totally is. And I love the idea of VidPal, like the live video from everywhere, so you don't have to leave your room.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I think, especially when there's a lot more videos on it, I think it's going to be really cool for searching. Like, its main thing is that people can request videos, like, what's going on in this part of the world, or maybe I want to, do I really want to take the 40-minute, bus or whatever to that part of New York?
Mhm.
But one feature is going to be searching, so people could just like type in a location, like type in a neighborhood anywhere on the world, and then see the videos that people posted. So it'd be like really cool to get a feel of like neighborhoods and districts, or kind of see like local tips that people share.
Is it going to be mobile friendly? So if I want to like record a thing in Chicago, I can just upload? Okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I haven't checked it out recently. We just the what's it called? The beta went live last week,
Okay.
And so I know they have the laptop version and they're going to go mobile, but I think you could still upload via your phone right now.
Okay. I'll be sharing it in my newsletter on Monday, so I'll have a link and everything to it
All
for
right,
all my traveling peoples.
awesome. So it's 5 o'clock right now, so we're
Yes.
getting started. And so when I press start broadcast, oh, did I? Oh, and we are live. Yes, we started this broadcast. That is great. Just wanted to give you a Vidpal tutorial and show you some behind the scenes.
Yes.
Yeah, we really go. So, hello, welcome to the vidpal.net startup and travel webinar series. I'm Emelina Monero, Vidpal's social media manager. And as you know, we are a global real-time video marketplace for the average traveler. So you could request videos from anywhere around the world or even in your own city. And you could fill requests and get some money or just search places where you want to know more about. And so tonight I am really excited to introduce you to Isabelle Rizo. She is a brand storyteller based in Chicago, and she's also the founder of the Bella Vie. Hello, Isabelle.
Hello.
So tell me a little bit more. We're talking about travel and how you've been into China to, I want to say, do you say Bulgaria?
Romania.
I made that one up, but make the other next. And so you've traveled all over. Tell me a little bit about what part does travel play in your life?
Everything. It's like it is my compass to everything that I want to do, and I have a goal every year that I have to be on a plane. So as soon as I got my citizenship right after high school, I've been on a plane since. So I've been to China, I've been to Romania, and then last year was New York, and then this year I have my first blogger press trip coming up in Colorado.
Oh wow! He said that's going to happen this year.
Yes.
What's that going to be like? You said your first blogger press trip. What would that be like?
Because I've done press trips here in Chicago, so you basically partner up with like a cool, like a museum or a hotel, and then in exchange for staying or visiting, you get free admission or something like that, and you just social media it up, write up a blog post for them, interview the people, find out what the story of that place is. And I haven't said officially yet, but I might as well because I'm on here now. I'm going to be staying at Glen Erie Castle in Colorado Springs. There's a castle in Colorado, and they have tea times, and everybody knows that I'm obsessed with tea. So when I emailed them, I'm like, you guys have tea times. Can I stay with you in exchange for social media and a blog post? And they're like, heck yes. So I'll be staying with them for a while, and then I have a client out there that sells vintage clothing, so we're doing like a photo shoot and stuff, and she's really cool. So it'll be my first beta blogging press trip meeting with a client thingamajigger.
This client they're talking about, I read one of your blog posts, and it talked about how get to know what your target audience really likes, and you did a case study about this client who I think maybe she makes vintage looking clothing, and her fans were, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing this correctly, but Downton Abbey fans.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, that was like a super great post, a super great image. Like, I just really like that. We're kind of diverting from travel, so we can get back to that soon. But can you tell me more, just like kind of as like a branding / social media tip, like the story behind that?
Yes. And so I read this great book, and how I got the idea for that. I read this great book by Ryan Holiday called Growth Hacker, and I've been obsessed ever since. It's basically like marketing is a big science experiment, and I'm a big geek and I love science. So I was like, perfect. So I know that this particular client that sells awesome vintage clothes, her Facebook page, people really love Downton Abbey. Like, they are obsessed with the show. So she made a meme, and it was really positive. And then we're like, oh my gosh, you know what we should do? We should use the products that you're selling with the picture from the Downton Abbey thing with a cute quote, like, because she was making cute quotes from the show. And it just blew up. And people were, talking about it. They were sharing it. And then we boosted it as well. And then that same day, there's a little spike on the case study of that traffic that came in. And we're like, okay, so there's a spike in traffic. That's great. But did it make a sale? Because, that's the end goal. And she did make a couple sales from that. And I was like, Yes, and it was fun because it was connecting with the audience. It wasn't salesy at all. It was just like, what does your audience want? And just give it to them. Make them smile, inspire them, make something shareable. And that's kind of how that case study went. So it was a lot of fun. And I learned a lot from that too.
So on branding, can you tell me a little bit of what it means to be a brand storyteller and what it is that you do?
Yes. So when I first started out, I was on Blogger and I had like this dinky little website. No brand or anything like that. And branding is it's really simple. There's like a formula, and I have it in my little ebook. When you sign up for my newsletter, it's just like 3 to 4 main colors and then 2 to 3 main fonts that you're using, and you're just using that consistently over and over again. So that could be your logo, the 2 or 3 colors you're using, and then the fonts. So if you're making memes, like we did the Downton Abbey meme, we use the colors from that client for the meme. Because there's I read this great book, it's called Biology. I forgot the guy's name. I think his last name is Lindstrom. Awesome book. It's like the biggest neuromarketing research book. I'm a geek. It's coming out. I'm sorry. It's really, really good. He talks all about branding in that. And when I couldn't put down this book, he talks about the color, but he also talks about how brands are kind of like that culture that you create around. If you're a company, if you're a blog, so you look at like Apple, or you'll look at Chanel, or you'll look at a particular blogger. What is it about them that they're sending out in their messaging, in their branding, in their colors, in their graphic design? So getting really clear on that, and then using that for your social media is kind of what I help people get clear on, because there's so many parts to being an entrepreneur, and especially online, if you're like a solopreneur. How do you even get started? So we like get to the core of who you are as a person. So I love Frenchy things, and I love tea, and I love like snail mail. I love writing letters. So I put that all into my blog. So if you visit my blog, it's very like Frenchy cute and like vintage looking. And I have like, I love the little like red lipstick, like that's a thing. So I put that on there, and that's just who I am, and I'm learning to embrace who I am and share that in my brand. So I try to help people get to that space as well. It takes time, and there's a big learning curve, but that's why I have a Facebook group where we're all talking about it all the time to help each other out.
How is it when you start with a new client? What's the kind of beginning process to help someone kind of connect with like the core of who they are to communicate that as part of their branding?
I tell them to first tell me their whole story. I tell them like what awesome experiences did you have in your life? What is the problem that you're solving because of those experiences that you had? What is the type of music that you love to listen to? What does your ideal day look like, and who would you love to surround yourself with? And I get a pretty good feel of how that person is. Like even my best friends, I'm like, I'm totally seeing white for you. I'm totally seeing like green for you, and like other different things like that. And I give them a whole resource. I bombard them with books, and I bombard them with podcasts as well. I'm like, listen to this podcast. After we talked about your story, I brainstorm a little, we brainstorm a little, we come back together, and we're like, this is what I see, and this is the product that I see. What do you think about this? And it's like a whole back and forth conversation.
So do you think people underestimate branding?
I think they do. And I just had my first tea party with a graphic designer, and she was fantastic. And we were talking about the importance of this, especially when starting out. And it doesn't have to be complicated or fancy. Like you don't have to spend $10,000 on this logo, you know. Just choose like 3 of your favorite colors that complement each other very well, that define you, and a couple fonts you really like that also complement each other. And use that as your starting point, as your base, because then that becomes memorable. People always see, oh, that's the girl with the lipstick memes. Okay, that's the guy that always does the green like eco stuff, and he's always using green on his banner. What is he up to? And you have to see a brand about 7 times before you even click it, or before that establishes some trust. So it's like get consistent, and stuff starts happening. Like I once I read that biology book, I was like, okay, let me implement this. And then it worked. I was like, okay, so this stuff works.
And so you've been talking about that you work with new entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
What kind of beginning mistakes that you notice that beginning entrepreneurs make so our listeners could know to avoid them?
Yes. So I think the first thing is, well, people are coming from, I tell people, what is it you're passionate about and how do you want to help others? And then a lot of things that they get stuck with is exactly like, how do you reach out to help others? And how do you even start that whole thing? Like, how do you pitch yourself? How do you market yourself? And I say, it's totally just a conversation. It doesn't have to be like, the 10-second elevator pitch. Like, having that is great, but I just worked through a couple, I had a call with a couple coaches that they're just starting out and they're doing like amazing work that I can't even do. And I just told them, okay, who are you serving and how will they be transformed after working with you? And from there, we created a conversation like, hi, my name is Mike. I help people sell things. And after working with me, I help them increase their sales by blah, 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 blah. And then that just creates that conversation or that mystique. They're like, oh, I want to find out more about this Mike guy, you know?
And so, what are the kind of biggest things that you've learned on your own personal journey? Like I was reading your website and I'm talking right now, said like you like to devour all these books and listen to different podcasts, and how like you started out with Blogger, then learned about branding and be able to apply it to yourself and then start your own business. It's like over this time span, what are some of the biggest things that you learned throughout this process?
So much. And I learned so much every single day. And I had a coaching call today as well. So the first thing I will say is invest in a coach or in a mastermind, because you're going to just propel forward. I've been doing this for 6 years. It could have taken much shorter if I would have just invested in myself sooner, and found somebody that was doing what I wanted myself to be doing in a couple of years. To ask them, how did you get there? And then actually listening and following through. Because I have this other thing where, and my coach pointed it out to me today. It's like, oh, you with your shiny objects, you want to do this and this and this and this and this. And I'm like, yes. And she's like, you know what you have to do. I'm like, yes, I know. So learning to stay focused. I'm still learning to do that. Branding for sure. Marketing and copywriting. Definitely, if you're going to start out, if anything, learn about branding and copywriting. That is awesome. Really good head start to learn. So mastermind, branding, copywriting. What else? Figuring out how to, there's this whole thing about like what is it called? Product market fit or all that stuff. So figuring out what is it that you're passionate about that you can create like a product or a service around, and how do you find the people that you're serving? So first building a community and asking people, what can I help you with? And asking, and figuring out what people need help with, and creating a product or a community or a service or a retreat or a program surrounding that. So just learning to listen to people to see what they need. Super, super important. And I feel like I kind of went backwards on this because I started with like just one-on-one, like I can do all these things because it took me 6 years to learn all these things, so I can help you get there. But now that I've built a little community of beginner entrepreneurs, I'm like, what can I help you with? Because I forgot being in the beginner what I wanted to learn. I'm like, oh, okay, step one. And creating something from that step one space. So learning to listen, for sure. And what else? I'm slowly learning this too, because a lot of entrepreneurs, especially like online entrepreneurs, were like workaholics. Learning to balance self-care and learning to ask for help. So I have a health coach that I talk to, and she helps me out when I'm like, I feel like the burnout's coming on, you know. So learning to ask for help and surrounding yourself with like-minded people that can challenge you and help you grow, and you can bounce off ideas from. That'll just like propel you forward.
So, in terms of mastermind groups, do you have any suggestions of where one could go to find one, or like any specific ones that you recommend?
Yes, and this is how I met Emelina. um, Definitely the Digital Nomad Academy, especially if you're like thinking of going the location independent route and working from your laptop, so all you need is Wi-Fi, like living the dream. And um, another one that I really like, and it's more for women that are into like energy work, and we're kind of woo-woo, kind of hippie, like with the crystals and everything. Leonie Dawson's Amazing Biz and Life Academy, especially for like beginner entrepreneurs. Um, and I love also just Facebook groups in general. There are a lot of really good open Facebook groups. Joe Gifford's Dexterous Divas and Dudes. That's an awesome one. And then McKenna Johnston, who's my coach, she has the Bliss Brigade, and that's another really good one as well. And I hang out in those. I have like a whole thing on my side of Facebook groups that I'm in. But those I would say are some of my top ones to get started with. And of course, you can join mine as well. And we're just the beautiful Bella Vistas. And it's all beginner entrepreneurs, and everybody there is just so cool. Like I love all of them.
What kind of things go on in among your Bella Vista group?
So we'll have like every single day we have a different thing. So Mindset Monday, and everybody's like saying what their goals are for the week. So the next week I check in and I tag everybody. I'm like, how are you doing on this thing you said you were gonna do last week? Because I know I need that. Then we do like Promo Wednesday. So if you're working on a project or you have a new blog post out, you can just post it on there, and we'll go through it and be like, oh, this was awesome. Then Blog Post Thursday, so your latest blog post, sharing your blog post. And then, of course, it's travel oriented, so Adventure Friday. So even if people aren't traveling, but a lot of them are, we will say what adventures we have planned for the weekend. That kind of goes into that self-care kind of stuff too. Like, okay, we're done working for the week. Let's go have a little adventure.
How do you work on self-care? Like, how do you, because I know for me, sometimes it's really hard to like stop. And I know that whenever I do get from that place of balance, I'm actually like a lot more productive and a lot more just well all around. It's like, how do you make yourself stop working, and how do you incorporate that balance?
Yeah, it's so hard. I'm totally there with you. And I'm learning to get better at this. And actually, I was pretty good today. I have on my phone, I'll put my phone in airplane mode, so I can't get any notifications on Facebook or on Twitter, and that
that's what it does.
Yes, it is so. I'm like, yes. And then I have I just use my phone timer. So I'll put like the timer on for a specific task. I'll write down my 3 main tasks I have to do, like non-negotiable for the day. I'll keep it like right here on my laptop. So I always will see it. It'll always be in my face. And then I keep the timer on to see how long it takes me. And then when I have a distraction, I will write it down at the top of that note, like it's been email. I checked Facebook. I sent another email. I checked the email again, you know? And I'm like, where is my time going? And I did that. I did that a couple of times when I'm like on a roll. That's what I do. Otherwise, and I slip up sometimes on the weekends. I'll still be checking my phone on Twitter because there's just so many cool people on Twitter. Like really, you know. And then of course my Facebook group. I'll pop in there throughout the day. So if I'm taking a break from work, because sometimes I'll do. I don't really recommend working like 5 hours straight because I've done that and then I just like fry my brain. I try to do like 20-minute to 30-minute bursts, and I put that on my cell phone. And then I look away from the computer, like I stretch, I get up, I go to the bathroom, do human things. Because otherwise I just be, and I've done that before, well, I'm just like on the computer too long. And when I have like a deadline or some big project, sometimes I still catch myself doing that. So I'm working on getting better at that.
And so earlier, tracking back to, I don't know, 10 minutes in the past, you're talking about branding, copywriting, mastermind groups, and self-care. So what kind of tips would you have for someone who wants to learn to be a better copywriter or to start implementing that?
Yeah. Do I have the book here? Like, here's all my bookshelves. um, there is when I hired my virtual assistant, um, she was interning for me at the time. I told her to get the copywriter's handbook. It's a great just like reference to look through. They have like email newsletter stuff, marketing, like traditional print marketing stuff, but then also digital marketing stuff. Um, that's just a good reference to have. And then my other favorite thing, I have this whole thing, like a whole list of resources in my ebook, the Brandgasm course. It
Ah.
sounds really funny, but for real, it's like branding and copywriting all in one. And she even goes through like Photoshop tutorials, and what else? She has like copywriting exercises, like how does she come up with her product name that's also like SEO friendly, but still really catchy and fun, because SEO is like a whole other beast in its own. But if anything, I would totally like, if you're, because I skipped college to do the whole entrepreneur thing. If you're going down this non-traditional path, definitely Brandgasm is a course you're going to want to take. uh,
And
yeah.
how do people get your ebook?
You can go to my website. My website's thebellav.com. It's TheBellavie.com. And I have a little sign up on the side and then at the top too. And then I have, if you go to, I think it's under resources, I have a little picture on there with a whole list of like how you can get started in travel, entrepreneurship, and like mindset stuff too. Because I realized first starting out, mindset, I didn't even think about that. It's like thinking that this is possible. I just knew. I was like, I don't have anything else I want to do. I want to travel. Okay. And I just stuck it in my brain, and it's been stuck there ever since. But sometimes now, especially as I'm growing my business, like all these limiting beliefs sometimes come up, like, is this really possible? Or like, okay, now I have to hire another person. Am I a good manager? Like all these like self-doubt things that come up, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I have to like get through that, and I'm really into that mindset stuff and how do you get over yourself, you know? Because I think as an entrepreneur, I think we're kind of our biggest block from our own progress. So that's why we surround ourselves with good people that will call us out on that.
What are some other tips that you have? Because I completely agree with you on that. I think mindset is probably the most important thing. So, like, aside from surrounding yourself with like-minded, positive people, what are other things that you do to cultivate a positive mindset to kind of like nip away those self-defeating thoughts?
Yeah, I have it's so funny. I should just give you a tour of my room. I have like I have affirmations on my wall that I'll wake up in the morning and just repeat to myself and like put them in my head that it's possible. I just read this is a funny. I just discovered her book, Jen Sincero's "You Are a Badass." Definitely must read, especially for people that are not so into the woo-woo, like the crystal energy work kind of stuff. She's totally approachable in that respect. So like affirmations, talking to my health coach, because we're all about that, like energy, because basically everything that you say can happen. Like your words are powerful things. So once you just declare that out to the universe is like, okay, let's open up some things for you. Let's see how you can handle it, you know? Um, and I worked with a mindset coach too for a while as well, to just instead of worrying about how things are going to happen, holding on to the feeling like it already happened and letting that being kind of like your guiding compass in a way. And I was like, this is too woo for me, you know? And what am I gonna say? I'm Reiki level 1, you know. I'm into the woo. So, but he's talking about this, and I'm like, okay, I'll try it out. And I try it out for like a week, and I'm really like hyper aware of what my thoughts are and I was surprised. I was like, man, I have a ton of negative thoughts about things. And then I just, I bring back my focus, like, no, this is going to happen. And like the end of that week, I had like 3 new clients. Uh, I got like published on a big female like entrepreneur blog, and I got like a ton of retweets, and I'm like, what? But and I'm still skeptical about it, despite seeing that that works. But definitely that. So being definitely the other thing too, kind of like meditation. It's kind of like a daily. You're like walking throughout your day, and it's a constant just being aware of the thoughts that you are bringing, like listening to yourself, uh, and yeah, meditation in the morning to set your day right. So that's why I'll do those affirmations in the morning, just to set the mood for the day.
Yeah.
And what else for mindset? Reading lots of books. I have like a whole, I should just like send you a whole list.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Actually, yeah, let's read those.
Yes, the badass one I just finished reading, and I gave it as a birthday present to my health coach, and we both chuckled over it. And I was like, "You got it, this book." I think also, how could I forget? Chris Gillibo's The Art of Nonconformity. Yes,
I heard that was a great book. I haven't read that one.
that was the book, along with a couple others. But I think that one was kind of like the catalyst, because I picked it up in high school and I brought it into class, and people were like, "What are you doing?
Huh?
Art of Nonconformity." I'm like, this man traveled to every single country in the world, and he did it, so it's possible. And I'm like, if he can do it, why can't I? And it's just like that book, I think, was one of the first that was like, okay, you can do this. Look at all these other people, because it's like case studies of all these people that did it. And I have all of his books. Like he has the other one, the $100 Startup, and The Happiness of Pursuit. That's another good one. But if anything, out of all of his books, I think The Art of Nonconformity is the best.
And so I read that you made this documentary about how student loans are enslaving the millennial generation and could lead to like really hurting, I think, the economy or society.
Yeah.
And I think it was linked to travel, of how working and studying abroad should happen. And so from that, I want to know, what kind of things can you learn through traveling that you can't learn through traditional school, and what things have you learned?
Yeah. Yes, I believe the world is your classroom. And I do think that it's kind of really bad what's going on right now with student loans for student. Like I have friends that are leaving with over $100,000 in debt, and they're starting their life with that. And I'm like, hey, that's scary, And I just don't think it's fair for our generation and for just the economy in general. But sidetrack. Traveling. When I first went to China, I just realized like how small I was thinking. Like I'll you'll watch the news here in the States, and then you'll watch the news over there, and it's completely different. Like they had their first female astronaut go up into space and then come down successfully. Was America talking about that? No. They were talking about, at the time, I think it was that weird like bath salt thing that was going on in the news with like the zombies or whatever. I'm like, what the heck? Really? Come on, she went to space and came down. Um, but also like all the other, I talked to a whole bunch of expats that were there, and I was so surprised. Like I didn't even know, like that wasn't even on my radar of like expats. This is a thing, and they're starting their own businesses over there. And they're teaching English over there, and I'm like, wow, nobody told me about this in high school. If I would have known, I would have just left then. And just like all these other entrepreneurs that were doing amazing things abroad, and they were just so creative, and they were doing the things that I kept reading about. And I'm like, okay, this is real. Like it solidified it for me. Like, wow, okay, people are doing this. I'm not just reading about it in blogs. And then when I was traveling to Romania, that's where like all my family is. And I never visited there. I was born in Germany, so I had never even got to visit my family. It was a whole other way of living. out in like the village in the countryside, like we would eat fresh baked bread made in like the backyard in like the old brick oven, and like fresh tomatoes from the garden, and I'm like, I could just eat bread and tomatoes. And like different cultural like differences and how different governments affect mindsets and cultural conversations. So it was both of those were communist. Well, China still is communist, but Romania was communist, and like that post-communist stuff is like Western influence is like too much. So it's kind of like an extreme if they've not been given that for such a long time. Now they have too much of it, so it's an excess. So there's that. So you get to see how different people live, and what conversations they're coming with, and other ways of thinking too, because every country has a different way of thinking and approaching problems in a different way. And I just love like hearing people's stories of how they grew up, and also like history, like a ton of history. Like I was walking in a castle and I'm like, I'm touching
Huh?
history. You know, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like Renaissance stuff. And then in China, we were on we didn't know until later that while we were walking in like this little village, and they're like, oh yeah, this is the Silk Road. And I'm like looking down under my feet, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the Silk Road. This is like the connection between all the and I was just like I was like, this is so cool, and just like being grateful for that experience, that we can do that, like, and then see that and be a part of. I'm just like, I that's like the best education ever, and hearing it straight from the people from that country, because you know you read about it in textbooks and stuff in school, but when you get to hear it from their perspective and their history from them, it's like, wow, I didn't even think of it that way, you know, because we see it from our Western mind only. Um, so yeah, like the world is amazing. I think everyone should experience, even if they can't travel far or anything, even just going to another town and just hearing the story or perspective or the culture of that little town is like, whoa, this is cool. Like there's so many cool people in the world. I can't even.
I think for me, I started to realize that like my own town and surrounding towns that I've been around, like, it's not forever, but
Mhm.
most of my life, how those are also like you just said, even just exploring the town next to you, like those could be so rich, just like filled with all these different adventures, all these stories that that we don't necessarily know about, and all these people. You think there's like so many people. I think my hometown, last time I checked, had like 55,000 people, but probably has maybe 65,000 now. And like,
Wow.
what are the ones that I interact with on a daily basis? Definitely not even like, probably not even 1% of all of that. Definitely not. And
Mm.
so there's so much going on, and that never really occurred to me until it was either till I went to Virginia for school, or I went into Spain, and then I did some other traveling. It was one of those two things that like shifted it for me. I think when I was living in Spain, I remember putting on a backpack, making a lunch, and just planning, like having everything I need for myself for a whole day, so I could just like walk around the town and just get to know this town that I was in. And I
Mhm.
thought I could do the same exact thing in my hometown and probably like discover all these things I never even knew about, and have all these like great conversations with people. And
Mhm.
when I'm traveling abroad, I'm more open to new experiences, as opposed to like being in my home city, or maybe going to San Francisco, just a short drive away. It
Mhm.
seems more what I'm used to. So it's kind of like this veil of like, oh, this is just my everyday, and like I kind of don't appreciate it, kind of take it for granted. It's cool to have that kind of traveler mindset that like anything can be
Mhm.
an adventure.
Yes, that I love that, and I love that you. It's like we said, it's a mindset shift.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally a mindset shift, and you know, I think I might want to go on an adventure this weekend to a little town not far away. Because it's true. It's so true. It's like I could totally be doing this and meeting cool people in my hometown. And I had for the longest time like, oh, suburbs of Chicago, ugh, boring, blah. And then I just reached out and was exploring a little bit, and I found like this cool web design agency that I just like walked in, said hello, and like we're partners now,
Oh
and they're
wow.
just like amazing, and I'm learning so much from them, and just like awesome conversation. I'm like, you guys were in the suburbs here? Since when are you in the suburbs? Like this is like a Chicago vibe thing, you know? But yeah, just like taking that initiative to bring that travel mindset to your town, and you're like, you'd be surprised or what the universe will bring you if we're gonna go woo on this.
And I like that too, talking about connections of how you walked into a website agency and now you guys are partners.
Yeah,
Like, what form does connections and relationships play in your business and in your life?
everything. Totally everything. My I met I met all of my clients through Facebook groups.
Oh wow.
And just like hanging out in Facebook groups, answering people's questions, offering value, sharing blog posts, giving feedback. Um, and people notice, you know, if you're engaged and helpful, they're like, hey, I want to talk to you. And you just create that friendship, and you're like, hey, this is what I'm working on. This is what I'm working on. Hey, I can help you with this if you need. And then it kind of grew from there, and it's just been referrals ever since, which is good because that means I'm doing my job. But yeah, like, and then what other? I walked into the web design agency and we just got to talking, and it was the same thing. It's like, this is what we do. I went in saying like, I can't do code. Like I can't code websites. I can like do Squarespace and WordPress, but nothing fancy.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, I have clients that might need your services, you know, and you're here in my neighborhood. Can I stop by? And they're like, yeah, sure. And then we got to talking. They're like, do you want a desk here? And I was like, okay. You know, and we've partnered on a couple projects and like some really big, cool social justice campaigns. And I'm learning a ton from them, and it's just fun. Like, it's fun. It's just making friends,
Mhm.
really. And that's how all my business is just like making friends, seeing what I can support people with, um, and creating community, you know. Because there's so many communities, but I feel like sometimes there are some communities that are for certain people, some for others, and I
Mhm.
feel like the more, I think we talked about this at the beginning, is like the more you embrace your you and your core self, the more people that will be will be like, hey, I want to hang out with this person, or hey, I want to hang out with this person, because they're so like, I love that they love Jackie Chan movies and they love Doctor Who. You know, like I love Doctor Who, so I want to talk to this person. Like we have that mutual thing, and they're totally owning it and sharing cool things. And I'm like, I want to hang out with that person. They sound cool, you know? And they're totally being themselves. So, and once I just started doing that, then I started finding like all these cool people. I'm like, how come we didn't talk before? You know? So totally just be yourself.
And so, segueing to a slightly different topic,
Yes.
social media.
Hmm.
Um, what kind of tips would you have for someone of how to successfully use social media?
Yes. Kind of going back to the branding thing, like being consistent with your brand, your colors, but then also being consistently on social media is good. And we talked about like not being on it 24/7. The the other thing, I like to schedule out posts. So if I write or you write or somebody creates like a video or a blog or something like that, that's awesome because you put time and effort into that piece of content. So don't let it go to waste. You just like put it out once. I use Hootsuite, and I used Buffer for a little while, but I still really like Hootsuite. I have a list in Evernote of all of my blog posts that I created, and then at the beginning of the month, I have my virtual assistant help me out to schedule everything out for my blog. So I'll have a blog post a day. And then when I see a cool article that's related to my niche about location independent travel or entrepreneurship or something about tea or some like inspiring quote that I'm like, oh, yes. Then I'll be like on my mobile phone and be like, okay, share it to my Facebook page or share it on my Twitter. And then Twitter, I usually use it for just conversations and connecting with people. Um, and using like every time I use the growth hacker hashtag, I get like a ton of new followers, and then I find a few really cool people that I'm like, whoa, you're doing some cool science experiments in marketing, which is cool. Um, and I actually found, I think I used hashtag entrepreneur or like entrepreneur hashtag Chicago, and there was this Indiegogo campaign with this guy that's starting a Chicago entrepreneur magazine.
Oh,
And
how cool.
I know, I was like, otherwise, if I wouldn't have found out or I wouldn't have used that hashtag, that I wouldn't have found out about that person because they started following me and then I checked out their stuff and I'm like, oh. So we sent a direct message to each other on Twitter and like, what are you, this is cool. Like, how can I support you in this? Because this is an awesome project. So many cool, awesome projects. I just wrote about this on a blog post about kind of like social media marketing in general. Because there's this whole thing like, you should use your social media to sell all of your stuff. And I'm like, cool. But social media is supposed to be social. It's supposed to be conversations. It's supposed to be about connections. Um, so I think there's a balance. That's why I balance it out with scheduled posts and also like conversations with people. Um, so if you're just starting out and I wouldn't say like jump on all the social medias. I would say like pick two that you really like to hang out in or that are relevant. Like if you're an artist, maybe Instagram and Facebook, because you want to share your art, like photos of your art. If you're a musician, YouTube and like Twitter, if you want to, and just experiment with those and see what happens. You could even just start out on one and see what happens. So don't get overwhelmed with the social media stuff because I know that's super easy to do.
I know whenever I love Twitter, and whenever I go on, when I'm like getting to know people, I'll look at their Twitter and I'll kind of see their accounts. And I'm drawn to the ones that are more heavy with conversation.
Yes.
Like I remember when I first got on Twitter, all the people that I followed, like they cultivated these communities and they created a lot of dialogue on Twitter. And that what I was really drawn to. It's like I'm actually connecting with this person and all these people surrounding this person as opposed to, I don't know, just kind of it just being a news feed.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, I use I think I'm more connected with like creating the community on Facebook. I've done a few Twitter, like the Twitter chats. I've done a few of those. Um, and I think I kind of use Twitter more like the news feed, but also a little bit of conversation and connecting with people. And then I'll just post that on Facebook. But that's my thing. So that's what I tell people. I'm like, do what you love to do and that you like are attracted to, because then it's not going to feel like work.
Yeah.
It's just a conversation. So I know that I could be doing more of the Twitter chats, but I guess the Facebook group thing, I got comfy with it, and I know a lot of people that use it, and most of my clients are on there. So I hung out on there. A few of them, when I actually mentioned Twitter, they're like, "How do I use Twitter?" And I'm like, oh, "You gotta jump on Twitter because there's so many cool projects." So this is perfect because you're doing the Twitter chat thing and Twitter community thing. I'm doing the Facebook community thing. So there's so many ways that you can do that. But like you said, it's about community and conversation.
And I'm a huge fan of Facebook because that's how we connected.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just so in love with social media. Like I've built so many cool relationships from it, and some of them just completely online, but connecting like this, but just all virtual. And then some of them transferring to offline, but just like so cool. Some of the people that I've met online, like they've become some of my biggest supporters, and I've become some of their biggest supporters. We just kind of just follow each other in a journey, like 5 years later. And it's this really cool thing to kind of see everybody growing and to have those kind of connections.
I love it. Yes, I'm totally the same way.
So we're getting further along. So I want to say, how can people reach out to you, and how can people find you, and what would someone want to do if they want to work with you?
Yeah, so they can go to my website, It's like I mentioned, it's thebellavie.com, and it's TheBellavie.com. Or they can, if they want to send me an email, I love emails from all the peoples. So it's thebellavieproject@gmail.com. You can follow me on Twitter if you want to, Bellavie92. And then on Facebook, you can add me if you want to, Isabelle Rizo. And I'm on Instagram, the Bellavie, because I love Instagram too. Uh, where else am I? But yeah, you can reach out to me wherever. Send me an email, visit my website, sign up to the newsletter. I send out a newsletter every Monday with cool books to read, some behind the scenes, but then also like case studies of how to use social media. But then also I like the sciencey part. So I think my latest blog post was how to feel confident in 30 seconds, and it's all about like power posing and how you can trick your brain to feel confident. So I love that kind of stuff as well. So I send that in my newsletter, but then also invitations to the Facebook group. Oh yes, the Facebook group. It's just if you search on Facebook, Beautiful Bella Vistas, you can feel free to join. Every month we have a tea party / webinar with different experts in a variety of different things. Last month we had a brand and copyright, finding your voice and discovering your brand webinar. This month we're going to have a whole like business strategy. Then we're going to have like a life coach that's going to come on there, like how to get over your stuff. Another one about building community. So, and everybody in the group has a whole bunch of experience in different things. So I was like, you all need to have a tea party. You know, you're all invited. So feel free to join the group as well. There's tons of ways to connect. Just reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Isabelle, for taking the time to join us and for this awesome conversation.
Yes, I loved this conversation. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So everyone watching, you can join us next week at Thursday at 8 p.m. and we will see you then. Bye.